Hello, I'm Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling and welcome to all the WTF moments from AEW Full Gear 2020. Now, for my money, and this might just be because it's the most recent AEW pay-per-view to happen, but was that AEW's best pay-per-view to date? It is certainly their most consistent for a little bit of time there after the debacle that was
All Out.
Variety was the name of the game here. Yes, we had plenty of fantastic professional wrestling action. Of course we did, with that card they put on, but we also had some silly bollocks, we had some drama, we had some shocks, we had everything. Really enjoyed it, but we're not here to speak about how great it was, are we? We're here to tear it down and nitpick like nobody's ever nitpicked before. So let's crack on with the WTF moments. Intro man, hit the intro, will ya? All the way back to the Kickoff show we go, and we are in the midst of some fantastic promo packages. When we hear Excalibur claim that unlike Darby Allin, Cody Rhodes, the Rhodes, it's so good to hear the Rhodes once again, isn't it? Cody Rhodes is not scared to change up who he is, depending on the circumstances. You see, according to Excalibur, when Cody Rhodes returned with his hair jet black and wearing darker suits, that meant he'd gone to the dark side. He'd really gone to a dark place, said Excalibur. And I was thinking, hang on, Excalibur, some darker clothes and a bit of boot polish in your hair, that means you've changed who you are as a person for the worse? That means you've lost the plot, does it, Excalibur? I was thinking to myself, surely Cody Rhodes lost the plot when he got that bloody thing on his neck. And next up we have some Taz maths, or if you are in America, we have some Taz math. And here we have a direct quote from Taz himself when he says, either the athlete makes the championship or the championship makes the athlete. And I was thinking to myself, Tazington Bear, you've only mentioned 2 of the 3 possible inputs into this equation. Is that mathematical talk? I've got no idea. I got a C at GCSE. And that's because we all know the third thing that needs put in that math-tazical equation. It needs to be said that when you're AEW Women's World Champion, you just get to stand in the crowd like a fan and watch on while all the emphasis just about is put on another company's women's world title. Poor Shida. 2 people there, 3 people there, 1 person there, angry Miz girl, all grown up, another person there, some more to follow. You know what we're getting at here. Arseholes, each and every one of them. We can't have Jim Ross bigging up the fact that everyone inside Daly's place is either wearing a mask or practicing social distancing and then not be shown people who aren't doing those things. Come on, man, sort it out, people. It's not hard, it's not inconvenient, you're just being dramatic. And then we have a direct quote from Big Dick Tony Schiavone himself when he says, and can Nyla Rose regain the Women's Championship? She will be going up against Hikaru Shida. Of course, Vicky Guerrero will be in her corner. And it was at this moment here I realised why Vince McMahon is so big on pronouns, pal. I wish I looked like the Butcher. And I cannot have been the only person asking this, but I was asking myself, when did Kenny Omega have to succumb to some sort of degenerative muscle-wasting disease? When did he get Q-tips, earbuds for arms? And it's obvious what's happened here, everybody, isn't it? Kenny was back there doing some sweeping, since he is, of course, back to being the cleaner. And when he was doing the sweeping, he was sweeping so enthusiastically, he knocked the light and sent it into a different angle that it should have been pointing in, and therefore his arms looked bloody ridiculous. Direct quote from Jim Ross this time when he asked Don Callis, who by the way was on commentary, which might be a WTF moment, but then again I was saying on the WTF moments from Dynamite this past Thursday on this very YouTube channel that it was clear that Kenny Omega was in Don Callis' house, and that must have been Don Callis' dog. Don, Jim said, you've known Kenny for a while, why is he called the cleaner? And to that question, Don Callis replied, you know what, Kenny Omega is a video game guru, and he transcends video games into pro wrestling, into business, and that's what he's doing here tonight with this. Don, you could have just said, I don't know, Jim, I haven't got a clue. That would have been fine. And of course, at this time, we do need to thank Excalibur for leaping in there, saving Don Callis' ass and answering the question Jim Ross asked of Don Callis. But I've listened to it so many times, everybody, and I still can't quite understand what Excalibur's saying. I'm sure it was right, though. Who knew Kenny Omega was such a massive fan of Sin Cara?
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
By God, I did it again.
By God, you did do it again, Jim Ross, because at that moment in the night you were saying you don't have to worry about countouts, there's no time limits, there must be a winner. And he said that while referee Paul Turner is quite clearly counting out both Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page. And I think Jim calls that a malfunction at the junction. By God, we're singing from different hymn sheets or playing the American football from a different play sheet. Whatever these things he says means.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
By God, I did it again.
And then Jim called a moonsault a Hurricane Rana. And I've got no idea what to add to that thing. It's just a thing that happened. Therefore, WTF, let's move on. And I cannot believe they were allowed to show this live on pay-per-view. And there's no easy way to say this, just in case you're watching these WTF moments having not seen Full Gear 2020, but unfortunately I need to tell you right now that John Silver reached his hands into Orange Cassidy's jeans pockets and he ripped them off. We saw a murder, as they like to say on Taggart, last night on Full Gear. May they rest in peace. And I don't know about you at home, no doubt there's some arsehole gonna comment down below saying, Ross, how have you never seen this? I haven't seen it, right? Don't hate me for that, for goodness sake. It's not my fault, I haven't seen the thing you're currently typing down below, but I've never seen a one-arm gorilla press before, therefore WTF. John Silver, make him world champion tomorrow. Now I know not a lot of us really acknowledge that the Rhodes name had gone from Cody Rhodes' name, but when the Dapper Yapper himself, Mr. Justin Roberts, said Cody Rhodes like only he could, and I saw that graphic there, my heart, it flew away with the eagle's nest. What a wholesome moment, lovely. But then the Dapper Yapper said, and your referee for this contest is Mike Chioda, and that eagle, it went soaring even higher because Mike Chioda, gotta do it, gotta keep the people happy, gotta give the people what they might not even want. But such is my life. But I maintain no man who has ever walked this earth counts to 10 like Mike Chioda, and it was fantastic to see Mike Chioda counting to 10 last night once again. And now, dear viewer, we must cut to Cody Rhodes' pals cutting a promo about a match they're having this upcoming Wednesday night, mere seconds after we saw Cody Rhodes himself having the bejesus kicked out of them. I know they might have been a little bit busy cutting the promo, but where were they for like the 5 or 10 minutes before that promo was cut? Where were they to help Cody Rhodes when Cody Rhodes was getting beaten up? Cody walked out for that match last night with roughly 1.2 million people by his side, and not a single one thought, hey, my pal's in danger here, let's go and help him out a bit. Where were they? But then we hear one of Cody's supposed pals called QT Marshall. He was cutting a promo where he was speaking to Ali, and he said to Ali, Ali, we all know you infiltrated the Nightmare family because we're the most prolific family in professional wrestling and we get the most TV time. And I can see what he's saying, but I don't think it feels right when it's coming out the mouth of QT Marshall. I repeat, QT Marshall, the naff and useless, he's not useless, the naff QT Marshall, whose new name, by the way, has to be Cook T Marshall, because Ali cooked him. She cooked him good. And just in case you don't know what a bunkhouse match is, it would appear it's a match that was lost somewhere in the late 1980s, and it requires you to rock up to it dressed in double denim and willing to use a lot of weapons. So I cannot wait for that one. And more to the point, everybody, I can't wait to see what the Butcher looks like. The Butcher's going to look sensational. I think I fancy the Butcher.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
By God, I did it again.
And here we have a direct quote, this time from Jim Ross, when he says, I believe that Shida has brought a lot of respect and attention positively to the AEW women's division. And I was thinking to myself, well, AEW, as a company, they've got a really funny way of showing that, haven't they? Jiminy Cricket, what the hell are you talking about, Jim Ross and AEW? Just use your women's division more. That's a starting point. Now, I'm sure we've heard this one before when it comes to Nyla Rose in a big pay-per-view match for a women's title, but why is Nyla Rose going to use a chair in a bog-standard singles match where she's not allowed to use a chair? She wants to win the women's title, but she's going to use a chair, and if she uses that chair, she's not going to win the women's title, is she? silly goose. Aubrey Edwards, what on earth are you doing? One of two things are happening here, dear viewer. Either referee Aubrey Edwards is watching Vicky Guerrero do that to the ankles of Hikaru Shida and just letting it happen, or she's seeing it happen and not telling Vicky Guerrero to piss off. Either way, it's a massive WTF moment. Referee's discretion, my arse. There's rules to follow. Maybe. Is there AEW? I don't know. Now, did anybody else see this? Of course you bloody did. If I saw it, you saw it, because I am as blind as a bat. Did anyone else see Nyla Rose say, "I'm Nyla Rose, slap me"? And then Vicky Guerrero whined back and bosh. You talk too much, man. You never shut up. You know how it goes. Matthew, how you doing? He doesn't watch these, who am I kidding? But more to this, this has got to be a WTF moment, because we're already seeing dissension between Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero before Nyla Rose and Vicky Guerrero have even really started. Remember when Nyla wheeled out Vicky as her surprise and shock choice of a manager, and thinking, bloody hell, Nyla Rose has just started to show in that feud a while ago with Shida that she's actually quite funny. The kendo stick and all of that bollocks fresh in the memory. And Vicky Guerrero being Vicky Guerrero, you're thinking to yourself, bloody hell, this is a match made in heaven. This is what the AEW women's division needs. And then they haven't been seen since, really. What's gone on there? Please don't let it end. It's not started. And next up we have Big Dick Tony Schiavone trying to read the back of FTR's entrance jackets. Greatest team of all time, Big Dick Tony Schiavone says. GTTOAI. He follows it up with, that's how it works, Tony. Greatest tag team of all. Infinity? Is that what Tony was going for there? To be fair to Tony, where he was sat behind the AEW commentary desk, it was a long way away. I'll let him off here. But I've mentioned it. Oh. So Matt Bad Ankle Jackson went for a bloody moonsault off the top rope. First of all, that's got to be a WTF moment. I know Matt Jackson, he's a young buck and they're invincible or something, but why would you go for that move when you know your name by deed poll is now Matt Bad Ankle Jackson? But then you've got to ask yourself the question, yes, I know that Cash Wheeler was coming in there to sort of push him off the top rope, but in that instance there, what is Matt Jackson actually going for? It would appear he's done a flip for a flip's sake. And then if that wasn't bad enough for the Bucks, more fines have to be coming their way, because look at Nick Jackson in the back of that shot there. Where on earth is the tag team rope? I would assume then that AEW are in breach of their contract with FTR and therefore have to pay FTR a massive sum of money, ranging from £10 to somewhere in the region of £10.50. Big bucks. Now to me, of course, who is a no-good hack on the interweb. FTR versus the Young Bucks from Full Gear 2020 was a match in a similar vein to Edge versus Randy Orton, the greatest wrestling match ever, whatever that load of bollocks was. And that's because, just like Edge versus Randy Orton was a celebration of all things great about professional wrestling, Bucks versus FTR last night was a celebration of all the great things regarding and surrounding tag team wrestling. We're doing all the fantastic tropes that makes tag team wrestling the brilliant thing that it is. We're whapping out all kinds of finishes from great tag teams in the past, but then we get to what might just be the biggest WTF moment of the entire night. Never ever did I expect to see FTR wind back into the corner, do the funny pose that DIY used to do back in the day, and then do DIY's finisher. I never thought I'd see that happen, but I did. Last night, so WTF, I thought they hated each other. I thought they hated each other good and proper. And then the finish of that tag team match has got to be a bit of a WTF moment, hasn't it? And I fully understand why Cash Wheeler maybe thought doing a flip, when he should have just fisted, was something he had to do, because that match was a war of attrition. Even though we had Matt Bad Ankle Jackson and everything going on with that, everything FTR did, it didn't work. So maybe Cash Wheeler was thinking, hey, I'll do something different, that might work in our favour. But when we've had 5 or 6 years of no flips, just fists, why are you going for flips in the biggest match potentially of your career to date? I guess that makes it a little bit of a WTF moment, when he just sit back and realised he shouldn't have flipped. He should have just fisted. And then we get to the silly bollocks portion of the night where, first of all, Sammy Guevara murdered a toy car. Poor Maxwell, I presume. Maxwell's toy car. He murdered that with a golf cart, and then Matt Hardy saw Sammy Guevara's golf cart and thought, hey, I'll murder that. So he ran it over before sticking his head out the window like a dog in the wind, shouting, "Whoa! That was orgasmic!" And then he got out the car and made a wrestling funny pun when he said, "Moo!" That was a squash job or something, he said, because he thought he'd not only squashed Sammy Guevara figuratively in the wrestling sense, but also literally in an attempted murder. That was broadcast around the world, but that's fine, because wrestling. And I know in the past I've said that WTF moments don't really work in these cinematic matches, but we've got to say, haven't we? Who has the bins out on a Saturday night? Either Matthew James Cuthbert Hardy and family, they're really bloody lazy, or they like to over-prepare way too far in advance. Put them away, man. And a massive shout out to Excalibur, who knew that was the scepter of Mephistopheles or something, and threw it in there so nonchalantly, like everybody should have known that was the scepter of Mephistopheles or something like that. Excalibur's good, isn't he? And then we had a fireworks fight, because of course we did. This is professional wrestling. But a bad thing almost happened, I guess, because while shooting Sammy Guevara with proper real fireworks, by the way, Matt Hardy actually shot Sammy Guevara right in the bottom of the back with a presumably really hot firework. And I was just thinking to myself, thank goodness Sammy Guevara was rolling round in what was presumably cold and wet mud, otherwise that would have left a bloody mark. Maybe even a bruise. Or a burn. And then we have a direct quote from Matthew James Cuthbert Hardy to Sammy Guevara when he said, "Sammy, get up or the old folks are going to think this is a mud show." Ha ha. Yeah, you take that, Jim Cornette. That'll show you for saying bad things about our show, that we're shouting you out on our show in an inadvertent way that people will understand, but still giving you a shout out nonetheless. I was thinking to myself, AEW, well, I can see why that might be tempting. Just don't do it, man. Let him shout into the void. Who gives a Oh. And then, just before Matthew James Cuthbert Hardy was about to throw Sammy Guevara into the lake of reincarnation, where Sammy would have come back out as a fetus, Sammy's really young. How far back can we go here? Gangrel showed up dressed as The Undertaker from the year 2000 with Hurricane Helms as his hostage, threatening both Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara. That's a thing that happened. I love this match. I thought it was fantastic. And I've seen people online saying this is one match too far. They've now jumped the shark, these cinematic things. But I was thinking Gangrel was there. You shut up. Gangrel's fantastic. I love Gangrel. Gangrel rules 12 times over. So we saw Hurricane Helms thrown into the Lake of Reincarnation. He came back out as the reporter, Gregory Helms. He was then thrown back into the Lake of Reincarnation. And my heart broke when he re-emerged and Hurricane Helms was back. Because I don't know about you at home, I was a WCW child and I was gagging to see a little bit of 3 count. Shannon Moore, Evan Courageous, where were they? I was heartbroken at that moment. You ball-teasing bastards, AEW. Let's have a sing-song. Why the hell not? In memory and as a tribute to the wonderful 3 count. I like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC 2. Britney Spears is kind of cute. I watch TRL on MTV. Everybody 3 count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You just don't get that in wrestling anymore. 3 count.
It's Jim Ross, bitch.
Bah, Gouda did it again.
And then to round off the WTF moments from this matchup, yes, I know we saw potentially a murder from Matt Hardy with the concerto on the floor. Rest in peace, Sammy Guevara, who now resides in the trash. All the power to him. We have a WTF moment courtesy of Jim Ross when he asked the question, the silly, silly question, I wonder if Private Party even know who Gangrel is. Why would you ask that question? Who doesn't know who Gangrel is? And then we get to Chris Jericho versus MJF. I'm very happy that MJF won that match. I can't wait to see which direction the inner circle goes from here. But just going off last night's match alone, it has to be a babyface turn for Chris Jericho. He wrestled that match last night as a babyface and the crowd lapped it up. It's got to be done. 1,000 memes will be created when Chris Jericho is back to being a babyface. But after watching Chris Jericho, who by the way is 152 years old. After watching him do a Frankensteiner off the pissing top rope and other moves, a man of his vintage and a man of 30 years experience in the squared circle, he shouldn't be doing those moves, but we watched those moves nonetheless. They are also WTF moments. We heard Excalibur speaking about Chris Jericho's 30 years in the pro wrestling business, and Excalibur claimed those 30 years started on the 2nd of October 2020. And for a split second, dear viewer, I was thinking that might be true because 2020 has been one hell of a long year. So long, it could have actually been 30. And then speaking of talking too much, man, you never shut up. Hello again, Matthew, who doesn't watch these videos. Definitely. Anyway, we heard Chris Jericho numerous times during that matchup, quite literally guiding MJF through it, move by move by move. Hit. MJF hit. Hit again. MJF did another hit again. And we heard it all. And I guess that's a bit weird. It's something I don't normally point out because, as we all know, that's how the wrestling works. Sometimes we hear it, sometimes we don't. But we heard it a lot during that Chris Jericho match, so I felt like I had to point it out, otherwise you would call me names. And then we round off these WTF moments with one massive WTF moment from Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. No, it's not the fact that Eddie Kingston couldn't get the job done and become AEW World Champion. While I did predict it happening on our predictions video, I never really believed it happening, especially when Eddie revealed his gear. Tribute or no tribute, that's not a World Champion's gear, is it? We saw all kinds of brutality rounding off the sort of variety of the night. This was bloody horrible in places, but I've got to make one of these moments a particularly massive and brutal WTF moment. As a man who suffers with dermatitis and open wounds all over his palms, when Eddie Kingston whacked out that rubbing alcohol and just drizzled it all over Jon Moxley's back with all the holes in that were created by the thumbtacks, I nearly cried. Because I felt that pain, having to use hand sanitizer this year more often than I have before. It stings each and every time, and I can't imagine how it must have felt with with a few tens of holes at the small of the back. That must have made his eyes water. So all the best to them. But I think that's it for all your WTF moments from Full Gear 2020. I've been Ross Twiddell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Thank you for joining me once again. Fantastic show. Back on track we are with AEW. Looking forward to that bunkhouse match on Wednesday. We'll see what happens there. But until then, I'll see you sometime in the next few days. Rocky Romero and Carl Anderson coming up on Straight to Hell. 2 different episodes. I think they're out on Monday and one Wednesday. Rocky Monday, Carl Wednesday. So watch them, please.